You're watching All 24 News World News Program. Next up are the headlines. Iran attacks the Zionist entity again and vows to assassinate Netanyahu. Tehran also denies targeting Saudi Arabia and accuses the United States of copying its drone technology. The rhetoric is heating up. Iran threatens U.S. economic targets. Washington wants backup to secure its oil, and Britain is considering sending aircraft, throwing a direct warning from Tehran to France. Deadly attacks are continuing. Israeli occupation strikes in Lebanon have killed and wounded several people, while 9 policemen died in Gaza, and a family has been wiped out in the West Bank. Mixed signals on oil. Iran says it's still loading oil as usual. Despite the tensions, the United States predicts prices will fall soon, but Iraq has just stopped shipments from Basra. Welcome back. The United States continues striking Iran as the war enters its third week, with both sides exchanging military attacks and warnings that the conflict could widen across the region. Zafar Jani reports.
After 16 days of the U.S. Zionist strikes on Iran, the Middle East is still a war zone. According to Iranian media, explosions and the sound of warplanes were heard over Isfahan in central Iran and Hamadan in the west. Iran's Tasnim news agency said Zionist and U.S. aircraft targeted civilian buildings in Hamadan, leaving several people injured and some in critical condition, while fighter jets continued flying over Isfahan. The Revolutionary Guard also said it shot down American and Zionist drones over Tehran and Tabriz. Meanwhile, Tehran announced the 54th wave of its True Promise 4 operation, using the Sigil ballistic missile for the first time since the war began. Iran's military also said drones targeted the Adafra U.S. base in the United Arab Emirates and regional command centers in the south and center of the occupied Palestinian territories. The Revolutionary Guard also issued strong threats against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, while U.S. President Donald Trump said Washington will not agree to a deal with Tehran unless strict conditions are met.
Iran wants to make a deal. I don't want to make a deal because the terms are not good enough yet. Any agreement must ensure Iran completely abandons its nuclear program. Our objectives are clear. We are destroying Iran missile capabilities, eliminating its naval fleet, and ensuring the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism never obtains a nuclear weapon.
In response, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Tehran is not interested in talks with Washington. In an interview with CBS, he added that Iran will continue defending itself until Trump realizes the war is illegitimate and unwinnable.
No, we never asked for a ceasefire, and we have never asked even for negotiation. We are ready to defend ourselves as long as it takes, and this is what we have done so far, and we continue to do that until President Trump comes to the point that this is an illegal war with no victory.
In parallel, the U.S. threatens to carry out additional strikes on Iran's Karg Island, the country's main oil export hub. Trump told NBC News that previous U.S. strikes had destroyed most parts of the island and warned that more attacks remain an option as tensions continue.
We may carry out additional military strikes against Karg Island, one of Iran's most strategic oil export centers. Previous strikes caused extensive damage there and sent a clear message about the United States' ability to target strategic sites when its interests or security are threatened.
As exchanges of strikes and threats continue, prospects for negotiations remain uncertain, raising fears that this war could further expand across the region.
Saudi Arabia says it intercepted and destroyed 10 drones over Riyadh and the eastern province. The defense ministry confirmed 2 drones were shot down in the east, while 6 ballistic missiles aimed at Al-Kharaj were also intercepted Saturday evening. For its part, Iran's Revolutionary Guard denies any involvement. My news agency reports the Guard saying the attacks have no link to Iran and urges Saudi authorities to identify the true source. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Tehran is ready to form a joint investigation with neighboring countries to identify those behind recent airstrikes. Speaking Sunday, Araghchi denied targeting civilian areas and said Iran is in contact with Gulf capitals, welcoming any initiative aimed at ending the hostilities.
Tehran is ready to form a joint investigation committee with its neighbors in the region to determine responsibility for the strikes attributed to Iran. We deny targeting civilian or residential areas in countries of the Middle East. Tehran is in contact with various Gulf capitals and will welcome any initiative that could lead to a complete halt to the American Zionist war against Iran.
In a related news story, Tehran accuses the United States military of copying Iranian Shahed drones to carry out regional attacks and drive a wedge between Iran and its neighbors. Ibrahim Zolfagari, a spokesperson for Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters, said Sunday that Iran claims responsibility for all its airstrikes, stressing that any target or they target only American and Zionist interests. Kuwait says it detected 14 drones over the past 24 hours, destroying 8. 3 targeted Kuwait International Airport, damaging monitoring systems, while the National Guard shot down 5 more at protected sites. Meanwhile, the UAE reported ongoing missile and drone threats as attacks hit multiple Gulf states in the 3rd week of the Middle East conflict. Air defenses intercepted strikes from Iran, with Dubai reporting interceptions over Marina and Sufuh, and Abu Dhabi containing a fire at an oil facility in Ruwais. Bahrain, for its part, confirmed drone attacks over Manama, triggering air raid sirens. Authorities urged residents to seek immediate shelter. In Iraq, sirens sounded near Baghdad International Airport as 5 drones were intercepted in the area. The Ministry of Justice said Baghdad Airport prison faced repeated attacks, calling them the most severe in recent weeks. In northern Iraq, a kamikaze drone struck the Lanas oil refinery in Erbil, causing a fire. Prime Minister Mohammed Shia Sudani on Sunday rejected any attempts to draw Iraq into the Middle East conflict. A Council of Ministers statement issued during a meeting with Australian Ambassador Glenn Miles warned of rising extremism and chaos, condemning attacks on popular mobilization forces and security sites. Iran's Revolutionary Guard warned the U.S. to move its factories and investment out of the Middle East, saying they could become unsafe targets. Press TV reports Tehran plans an economic deterrence strategy to raise the cost of America's regional presence, turning U.S. projects from profitable ventures into high-risk liabilities. U.S. President Donald Trump urged nations affected by Iran's actions to help secure the Strait of Hormuz. He said several countries will join the U.S. in deploying warships to keep the vital route open, and hopes China, France, South Korea, and the U.K. will contribute forces. Trump minimized the impact of rising fuel prices at home, predicting they will fall once the conflict ends.
Iran wants a deal, but the terms are not good enough yet. Any agreement with Tehran must be very strong. Our goals are clear: to destroy Iran's missile capabilities, weaken its naval fleet, and ensure that the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism never obtains a nuclear weapon.
The UK Ministry of Defence says it's carried out defensive sorties in the Middle East using Typhoon and F-35 jets aimed at protecting British and Allied interests. British Energy Secretary Ed Miliband told Sky News the country is also considering sending minesweepers or mine-hunting drones to secure the Strait of Hormuz.
We do want to work with our allies to seek to get the strait reopened, and as you say, there are a range of things that we can do, including autonomous mine-hunting equipment. And that's something we're obviously looking at. I'm not going to obviously speculate.
For his part, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned France and other European nations against actions that could escalate the Middle East war. In a Telegram post after a call with his French counterpart, Araghchi urged Paris to avoid moves that could fuel conflict and instability linked to the US and Zionist forces. The warning follows U.S. President Donald Trump's call for countries, including France, to send ships to secure the Strait of Hormuz. In Lebanon, 14 people were killed and several injured in Zionist shelling of southern towns. The health ministry reported 7 deaths, including 4 children in Nabatiya's nuns' quarter, and 7 more killed, with 8 injured in Har Saida and Katrani. An airstrike in Sidon killed at least 1 person and injured 3 children. The Lebanese National News Agency said Zionist forces launched around 20 airstrikes on southern Lebanon and Beirut's southern suburbs Sunday. Since March 2nd, the health ministry says Israeli occupation attacks have killed 850 and wounded 2,115. Bombardments continued across Nabatiya and West Bank, leaving hundreds injured and some trapped under rubble. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, spoke by phone with Lebanese President Joseph Aoun on Sunday, discussing the strong ties between the two countries. President Tebboune expressed Algeria's solidarity with Lebanon and its readiness to support the Lebanese people amid repeated attacks. At least 9 Palestinians were killed Sunday when Zionist forces bombed the entrance to Az-Zuwayda in central Gaza Strip. Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah reported the deaths of 9 police officers after a police vehicle was struck on Salah ad-Din Street. In the northern West Bank town of Tamun, 4 members of the Bani Auda family, a father, mother, and 2 children were killed and 2 others wounded after Zionist forces opened fire on their car near Tobas, the Palestinian Ministry of Health reported. Similarly, in Tamun, occupation forces shot and killed a Palestinian family of 6 parents and their 4 children as they drove to buy 8 clothes. More than 50 bullets hit their car. Karim Mustafa has the story.
The occupied West Bank has once again been shaken by a brutal crime carried out with a Zionist entity. A Palestinian, his wife, and their 2 children were shot and killed by the occupation forces in the town of Tamun near Tubas. However, despite attempts to obscure what happened, the blood of the 4 martyrs and the testimony of the eldest surviving son and his brother revealed the horrifying details of the massacre as well as the brutality of the Zionist occupation.
We were leaving Nablus from Al Nabulsi restaurant and suddenly we found ourselves under direct fire. We didn't know where it was coming from. Everyone in the car was martyred except my brother Mustafa and me. A soldier pulled me out of the car and began beating me. Then they dragged out Mustafa and tried to hit him, but I stepped in front of him. They pushed me to the ground and started hitting me on the back with their boots.
What should have been a joyful moment, a simple trip, suddenly turned into unimaginable grief. The Palestinian Red Crescent said the Zionist forces initially prevented its medical teams from reaching the scene in Tamun, despite report of multiple injuries.
They were young people and women, young children. What do? Are they armed? It's such a pity. These soldiers who shot them should be sentenced and executed for what they did to my son and his children.
The massacre of the Bani Auda family is yet another episode of a long pattern of violence against defenseless Palestinian families as part of a wider campaign aimed at erasing the Palestinian presence.
Iran continues normal crude oil loading from Karg Island despite U.S. airstrikes last Friday. Satellite data and tanker trackers posts show a 3rd tanker loading Sunday, joining 2 others that began immediately after the strikes. 7 more tankers are in the area, 5 already to sail, confirming uninterrupted oil exports. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright predicts the Middle East war will end within weeks. Speaking to ABC News, Wright said that once the fighting stops, energy supplies will bounce back and prices will drop.
Yeah, I think that this conflict will certainly come to the end in the next few weeks. Could be sooner than that, but the conflict will come to the end in the next few weeks, and we'll see a rebound in supplies and a pushing down of prices after that. But yes, we were very aware that we would have short-term disruption. We would cause a little bit of increased prices on Americans. Prices today are still far below what they were in the Biden administration. where they were begging, bartering, and bribing Iran to behave better. We had $5 gasoline in the middle of the Biden administration. We hope we don't get there this time, but at least this increase in gasoline prices is for something that's going to change the geopolitical situation in the world forever.
Iraq has suspended oil loading and exports from Basra ports. Local reports say storage tanks are full to the brim. Extraction has ground to a halt. Algerian minister delegate to the Minister of National Defense and Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, General Said Shingriha, said terrorism has been defeated in Algeria thanks to its people, while the fight against its remnants continues. He made the remarks Saturday during an inspection of troops involved in a counter-terrorism operation in Tbissa, which eliminated 7 terrorists last Thursday and Friday, urging continued efforts to safeguard national security.
Brave fighters, our presence here today in the field with you is first and foremost an encouragement to you. I also convey to you the congratulations of the President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense on the results you have achieved and the efforts you have made in the field. These results reflect your courage and your dedication to the mission set forth by the leadership of the National People's Army in combating terrorism. I urge you to continue fighting this scourge without mercy or leniency, so that the Algerian people may be proud of you and that the country's leadership may honor your sacrifices. Terrorism has been defeated by the sons of Algeria. We have defeated it and continue to do so that Algeria remains a proud and sovereign nation.
In France, thousands marched in Paris on Saturday to denounce the rise of hate speech and racism. Protesters sounded the alarm over a 30% spike in attacks on Muslims, accusing authorities of failing to protect them. Chants against the far right filled the streets, with demonstrators demanding real peaceful coexistence.
I actually feel that nowadays, fascist rhetoric, the kind of rhetoric that promotes this sort of relationship of domination, this relationship of power, is becoming more and more normalized. It's like racism, for example, where racism has somehow become just an opinion, even though it's supposed to be illegal. I don't think that's normal. So it's this rise, really, of the normalization of a kind of discourse that harms minorities, that harms people, basically.
French authorities arrested 2 Moroccan brothers with Italian citizenship Tuesday over a suspected bloody and anti-Semitic plot. Elias, 22, and Muad, 20, were caught with a semi-automatic weapon, hydrochloric acid, aluminum foil, and an ISIS flag. Investigators say they confessed to planning a terrorist attack in France after failing to travel to Syria or Palestinian territories. A video showed Muad pledging allegiance to the Islamic State. An investigation for criminal conspiracy and weapons charges is underway, and prosecutors have requested the brothers be charged and held in custody. They arrived in France with their parents in 2017. Despite soaring prices, Pakistanis are packing Rawalpindi market ahead of Eid. The rush is on for clothes and gifts, even with fuel and basic costs spiking in Ramadan's final days, tied to the war in the Middle East. So Salman Asib has more.
In the crowded alleys of the Rawalpindi market, one of the largest markets in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, a human tide has taken over the shops and stalls. Shoes, clothing, jewelry, and accessories. Pakistanis from different regions of the country come to do their shopping in preparation for the celebration of Eid al-Fitr, one of the most important holidays in the Muslim calendar, which rewards Muslims after a month of fasting and devotion.
Many things that can be found here are not available in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. We came here to do some shopping. The prices here are good and the vendors are also open to negotiation. It's a pleasant way to spend time.
as vendors loudly announce prices and try to attract customers, hoping to convince them of the quality of their goods. The many men, women and children strolling through the market aisles search for good bargains and negotiate to buy at the best prices.
As there is no control or balance, prices vary greatly here. In some shops, prices are very high, while in others are very low. In one shop, you can find a suit for 1,000 rupees, whereas in others you may have to pay 2,000 or 3,000 rupees.
With only days remaining before the end of the holy month of Ramadan, charitable organizations across Pakistan are hosting more collective iftar meals, drawing larger crowds as rising food and fuel prices strain household budgets. Just last week, gasoline prices increased by 55 rupees, surpassing 320 rupees per litre.
And now the news in brief with Sufyan Kanturi.
Senior US and Chinese economic officials met on Sunday for a new round of talks aimed at smoothing difficulties surrounding their trade truce and facilitating the US president's planned trip to Beijing to meet the Chinese president at the end of March. Human rights groups and local officials in Spain have called for Sahrawi people to be granted their right to freedom and independence in Western Sahara. The appeal came during the launch of a humanitarian convoy by BOSC, authorities and associations to support Sahrawi refugees. North Korea conducted tests of its most advanced multiple rocket launcher system a day after Seoul announced it had detected the launch of around 10 ballistic missiles from Pyongyang toward the Sea of Japan. Louisa Burish won the bronze medal in the women's Muay Thai under 55 kg category at the Karate First Premier League finals held in Rome. The Algerian athlete secured the bronze after defeating her opponent from Taiwan in the repechage final, confirming her strong performance throughout the tournament. The result brings Algeria's total to 2 medals after 3 days of competition.
And finally, to a lighter note, street performers dressed as superheroes shared the spirit of Ramadan by distributing iftar snacks to motorists and pedestrians in Bandung, West Java, in Indonesia. More in this report.
In Indonesia, the holy month of Ramadan is celebrated differently. Street performers dressed as superheroes handed out free iftar snacks to motorists and pedestrians in Bandung. This initiative, part of Indonesia's Ramadan festivities, aims to help families and consumers ease the stress of long journeys through the city's heavy traffic while breaking their fast.
When we see activities like this, as Muslims, we feel proud that people are still willing to share and set something aside for others who are fasting. For me personally, it inspires me to share as well.
Among those taking part are the street performers who say the initiative is not only about entertainment, but also about giving back to the community during the holy month.
I don't know how long I will live, but when I face death, one day I want to be remembered as the Jimai clone who often shared during Blessed Fridays, or simply as someone who loved doing social work. I don't need big dreams, I just want to be remembered as someone who liked doing good.
The small act of sharing iftar in Indonesia and many Muslim countries has become a simple reminder of the community spirit that Ramadan encourages.
And then that brings us to the end of our news program. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.